Hey everyone, I thought I'd make a follow-up video to the one I made last time about the growth of AI. And in particular, for this video, I want to focus on AI and creativity. In my last video, I mentioned a couple of things about how the unprecedented rise of AI will mean that perhaps one day humanity itself will become obsolete. I also talked about how digital artists are becoming increasingly vocal in their opposition against AI-generated artwork. Voice actors are going to be losing out to voice generation software like 11 Labs.io. And I also mentioned how I still compose music on MIDI software like Logic Pro X, even though AI can already compose music, probably at a much faster speed and with greater production and mastery than I can. So why do I still compose music? And do I think AI will completely eclipse all human creativity? Well, no, I don't think it will. I don't believe AI will truly make humanity obsolete. That's not actually an opinion that I agree with, and I will explain why in this video. So first of all, I want to start off by asking, what is art? If we look at the definition of art, it's something like this: the application and expression of human creative skill or imagination, typically in visual form, in order to produce works that are meant to be appreciated for their beauty or the extent of human emotions that they elicit upon viewing. Something like that. Now notice in that definition, human skill, because art is inextricably linked with the human experience. You see, as humans, we experience a wide range of emotions in the chaotic, turbulent flux that is being alive. All sorts of weird things happen to us. We experience feelings like love, desire, fear, anger, and hatred. We're all striving to make sure that we survive and that we pass on to the next generation. And we have thoughts about the big questions. What happens to us after we die? And we all fear death. That's another thing. And art is one of the many means through which we transmit. They are basically artifacts of how we as humans record our emotional state at any particular point in time. They are basically written or perhaps visual or maybe sound-based proofs that we had to contend with these feelings at some point. It's really funny, if you look back throughout the entire course of human civilizations, we never technically, when I say technically, I mean literally, we could have survived without art. You know, there are things we need. We need houses, places to live. We need beds. We need food. We've always needed. We needed members of the opposite sex to reproduce and have children with. We needed water and things like that. But it's funny how you think that art isn't technically included in the list of things that serve practical usage, because it's entirely possible, theoretically at least, to live a whole life without needing art. And yet, does it not seem paradoxical just how vital art is, not just to any one particular civilization, but to humanity itself? All civilizations have left behind art of some variety, even though there may not have been any practical need for it. It's because to be human is to desire meaning. As humans, we seek meaning and purpose in literally everything, in all facets of our lives. And art is just one of the many facets. Art is but one method through which we seek to acquire meaning. It's similar in a sense to our need for religion. because as humans we fear death. We fear what will happen when the ground reclaims us. So we need assurance that we are part of an ongoing continuity of human history, that we have an end destination, an end point, a destination which we're headed to. We need rhyme and reason. And just as religion serves that one very particular purpose to humanity, art does in pretty much the same way. Even though technically art does not save you, for instance, from getting eaten by large animals. It doesn't protect your life if you're under attack by thieves or bandits. It doesn't put food on the... Oh, well, maybe it does. I mean, depending if you make a lot of money out of art. But that's beside the point, because most people who create art, I guarantee you this, most people who make art of any kind don't do so for a profit motive. If anything, that's secondary. You think I make any money from the songs that I write? No, I've never made... I don't think I've made a single penny from any of the various songs I've composed, but I still do it anyway. Because, well, there's lots of reasons, but really it's fun, and I just have this urge to do it. I can't explain how long I've had these urges. It's just I have these ideas for songs, and I want to transmit the songs into a digestible format so that it can finally escape my brain. It's a weird way of describing it, but that's pretty much how I feel about the songs that I compose. And Logic Pro X, I find, is the most practical interface that exists for me to help make that happen. AI can't really do that. There's only so much information you can record in one prompt, in one generation prompt, and it will never come out the way you want it to. And that's because, you see, as a creative control freak, I want 100% control over the things that I create. And AI generation is really, if anything, it's a surrender of control on part of the creator. And it's totally effortless. See, that's another thing. How long does it take to generate a song through AI technology? Only a few seconds. Not long at all. Real art, I mean, how long did it take Michelangelo to sculpt David? 3 years. And it took him 4 years to finish painting the top of the Sistine Chapel. That's another thing that defines art. Sacrifice. The time and effort that it takes to create art is proportional to how widely appreciated that art will one day be upon completion. Not all art is appreciated, but as I've said earlier, the creation of art isn't linked with profit motive or even with the promise of it one day being appreciated. It's created for something entirely of intrinsic value to the creator. There's simple, if we're to reduce it down to the bottom line, it's creation purely for the sake of creating something that did not exist previously. And I think that, in a nutshell, is what real art is what art is about, and why people create stuff. We do it purely for its own sake. And that's something that AI will never be able to take away from us. Because AI, let's leave aside the matter as to whether AI is truly counts as a sentient being. Its needs are not the same as ours. AI relies on information and patterns in order to acquire more information and to execute specific functions. It doesn't tackle the big questions of life in the same way that we do. It doesn't ponder and think about what happens after it's perhaps switched off or decommissioned, or if indeed that ever happens. And this is probably something that's going to happen even if we get to the hypothetical point in human civilization where AI takes over and wipes out humanity. Whatever you think the likelihood of that situation whatever you think the likelihood of that even is. So the point of this is AI is inextricably linked with the human psyche, the human condition. It's born out of our desire to seek meaning and purpose in our existence, in our frail, unpredictable, and chaotic existence. It's our journey. And the next thing I want to say about AI is that AI cannot truly create in the same way that humanity itself can. One thing that you notice, if you look back through the history of any form of art, let's talk about Western music, for example. If you look back at the history of Western music and see how it's evolved, what you tend to notice is that often what you see is new music trends or new music niches are often created by accident, because as humans, we're not perfect. We're not perfect in our ability to recall, recite, and reproduce and relay information that's granted to us. And art is the one particular field where this is interesting, because our flaws, our imperfections in our ability to reproduce music often results in music, not just music by the way, but visual art, anything. What this means is it ends up taking on an entirely different life form of its own. So let's talk about the Beatles, for instance. When the Beatles were all young lads in Liverpool in the 1950s, the music that they listened to on the radio was Motown, blues stuff on the wireless from America. And when they first started making music, they wanted to create music like the music they heard on the radio. They wanted to make Motown and blues. But they tried this and they failed. They just weren't able to replicate the style of Motown. And what happened instead was a lot more interesting. They ended up creating something entirely different and original, purely by accident. And they ended up becoming the best-selling #1 music group in all of recorded history. Now think about that. Isn't it fascinating how we as humans can often make these really astonishing discoveries or these new artistic ventures by pure accident? That's another thing that's heavily connected with the idea of art. Sometimes not all things are intended to be created as art, but they just are. And AI is not capable of this because AI does not have that same, AI does not possess the same flawed tendencies towards imperfection that we humans do. So AI transmits data flawlessly from one destination to the next. It makes calculations with inhuman precision. AI music, and I've experimented a little here and there with Suno AI and other music creation software. What I've noticed is AI is very effective at replicating or copying already existing music trends or even historic music trends, but it can't create new ones. That's the kind of thing that only human ingenuity can do. And I'm not going to say that I think AI music should be banned outright. Lord no. I mean, I've actually listened to quite a lot of AI-generated music, and a lot of AI-generated music that I've come across on the internet has mainly been humorous, irreverent, and stuff full of, vulgar language and obscenities, like these songs here, for instance.
I think I just shit in my pants. No idea how it happened. I think I just shit in my pants. The smell is so bad, nobody's laughing. Yeah, I guess I just shit in my pants. Woo!
Have you ever took a dump so big that it tore up your butthole?
Show me where you piss from. Let me see where the P comes out, because I need to take stock. How you sit down to pee if you haven't got a clock.
She farted so hard, she died, but I'm not gonna cry.
And they are really funny, and I do listen to them from time to time. But at some point, the novelty wears off, because it's really, these kinds of AI-generated songs are nothing more than party tricks. The novelty wears off eventually, and it can't be appreciated in the same way that human-created art can be, because it's not truly sincere in the way that human-created art is. Yeah. I want to say also, I resent the use of the term create when we're talking about something that's AI generated, because AI does not create, AI generates. Let's get that out of the way. I think very little of content creators, generators I should say, people who make AI generated music and who seek to make a career off of it. I mean, it just doesn't feel right towards me, but sadly, there's just no turning back the clock. You know, we can't put the genie back in the bottle. Since the technology exists now, people are going to use it. People with little to no artistic scruples, and there's going to be an overabundance of AI slop. That's unfortunate. But the true human creative spirit will never die. And that's what I believe. Call me a romantic, call me a poet, but, and I've said this many times before, art is inextricably linked with the human desire for meaning and purpose. And as long as humanity itself exists, art will always exist. And the same thing goes, I would say, for digital artists. And are you really going to stop creating things just because this computer, this neural network model can do it much quicker than you can? Of course not. That's not what it means to be an artist. That's not why you create. You don't create because you don't stop creating because other people can do it better than you. You create purely because you want to. Because you want to leave behind some written or visual or sound-based evidence, some artifact that you existed at some point with your signature as a human being on it. Something perhaps one day that might even outlive you. But anyway, those are some more thoughts that I thought I'd share on AI and human creativity. Never forget that. AI should exist to serve humans. It shouldn't exist to replace humans, and it never will. You know, AI will always play second fiddle to the human experience. Another thing I wanted to add is, I don't think AI should be banned outright. Of course not. You know, I actually consume a lot of AI generated songs. I talked about this earlier, and you know, they certainly have their potential. They could help, for instance, they could help aspiring game developers or programmers. So they could help people, certainly in that respect. But there needs to be some kind of law where any AI-generated music or visual art or anything like that, it should come with a hidden watermark that allows people to instantly tell if something is AI-generated or not. And it should be illegal to misrepresent your work as something that's genuine when it is in fact AI generated. That should be a form of fraud. Even if it includes transformative use of AI generated work, it should still have a disclaimer like that. Because even though we live with this technology now, we still need to be mindful of the respect that real human artwork requires and always will. Because I don't want to live in a world where you turn on the radio or you go on the internet and you hear a song and you can't tell who wrote it or even if it was written by a human at all. That's not the kind of future I want to live in. And I think we should be able to tell. We should have the right to know whether something is human-made or made by a robot. Anyway, that's all I wanted to share with you for now. This has been Tracking. I'll see you guys later. Take care, everyone.